Well, hello, welcome again to a reading through of Iliad 16, and I got up to line 351. Hutoi ar hegemones, for then the leaders of the Trojans. Well, we get this funny use of Hekastos, which is fairly common in Homer and elsewhere in Greek, so you've got to paraphrase it a little bit. So these leaders of the Trojans were killing each one a man. So we would say each of the leaders of the Trojans were killing a man. Helon from Hyreo, we've seen that before in the sense of to kill or to take out. And this is an unaugmented form here. As lukoi, as wolves, epikraon, this is from epikrao, epikraon, it means to attack or to lay hands on. So just as wolves lay hands on sheep or kids. Now the syntai goes with the lukoi. Syntai is really a first declension. It's from syntes, first declension masculine, but it's really an adjective here. It's going with lukoi, meaning ravening. There's a corresponding verb with this. So just as ravening wolves lay hands on or attack the sheep or the kids, hi eumenoi, notice you've got this eolic form here for oo, so taking out, and then we get hoop ek, out from under. The malone, now the malone, I'm going to translate this here as flocks. In the singular it refers to small cattle or sheep or goats. It's a fairly vague word, so I'm going to translate it as flocks here. So lifting them out from the flocks, and they, so this is, I think, referring back to the sheep or the wool or the kids, who di et magen. This is from dia tamago. It's dia. The tum root is connected with temno, to cut. It literally means to cut in two. But so who are, I think it means here, are separated from, and this is the N for asan. So who have been separated from, or perhaps who have been separated on the mountains by the foolishness, alpha privative here, by the stupidity, the foolishness of the shepherd. Hoi de idontes, they, having seen this, now going back now to the wolves, these wolves, having seen this, forthwith they snatch them away. Literally, they having, so this again is referring back, it's feminine, agreeing back with this to the goats or the sheep. They having a heart with no valour, a heart which has no valour, because they're sheep. Thus the Trojans were attacking the Trojans. It's that same verb again, it picks up the same verb. But they so they gave thought, so yes, so they gave thought to ill-sounding rout, ill-sounding flight, dus and kelados. So thus the Trojans were attacking the Trojans, but they were giving thought to ill-sounding flight. It's flight because it's ill-sounding because they're in total disorder and they're screaming and running away. And they had forgotten their thuridos alkes, their impetuous valour. Aias, Ajax, the great Ajax, there are two of these among the Greeks. This is the great Ajax with the huge shield. Continually, Iet, now this is from Hyami, this is Hiet from Hyami. It's the Hyami that was originally, I think, Hyami, means to wish or want to, or to desire to is probably better. So the great Ajax continually wished Akontisai to throw his spear against Hektor with the bronze helmet, but he, and this is referring to Hektor, Idrea, this is an interesting word. The id here is connected back with oida, aidon, and so on. Idrea means knowledge of. So he, by his knowledge of war, Kekalumenos, having covered over his broad shoulders with his tarae, with his oxhide shield, Escepte top it will be, he was keeping an eye out for the roidzon, the whistling, probably onomatopoetic word here. You can hear that the sort of whistle in the sound, roidzon, and there's a corresponding verb, of course. So he kept we'd say kept an ear out for, but he was watching carefully, kept an eye on the whistling of arrows, and literally the thud, or just say noise, acontone of javelins. Amen day, quite three nice particles here, and indeed, or in fact almost, gignoske, this is an imperfect. He was knowing, so he was realizing, he was understanding that literally the victory the victory, heteralkia, it's a compound here of hetera and alke, giving strength to the other side in respect of the battle. I think this is a kind of defining genitive here. Or you could say the victory of the battle was giving strength to the other side, but that's a bit strange. The meaning of it is he realized that the tide of victory was turning, we'd paraphrase it as. So surely he realized that the victory in battle was giving strength to the other side. Alakaios, but even thus, this is from Anamimno, he stood his ground, he remained behind, he stood his ground. Now Sao is tricky here, it's actually a third person singular, third person, not first, from Sao. This is an Aeolic poetic contraction here, from Sao to save. So he was perhaps, it's imperfect, so it's almost conative here. So he was trying to save his trusty comrades. Just to do that last little bit again. So indeed he realized that the tide of victory was turning, but even so he stood his ground and he was trying to save his trusty comrades. Now we get another fairly complicated metaphor here, and I'll leave the commentaries to discuss all this. There's lots of stuff written on this particular metaphor. So it's hos te hot ap Olympu. So as when Nephos, a cloud, comes from Olympus into the heaven, from the dies, from the heavenly or divine ether. Again, I'll leave the commentaries to discuss all these different places. What's the difference between the ether and the the heavens and so on. When Zeus, Tane literally stretches out, we would just say perhaps sends a lilapa, from lilaps, a storm. Thus, so in this way, there was Iake, a crying and a rout from them of them from the ships. So even so, there was a crying and a rout of them from the ships. Nor Peraon from Perao, nor did they understand the trench again, Kata Moiran, in good order. But the horses, the swift-footed horses, Ekpheron for Ex-Epheron, were carrying Hektor out, along with all his accoutrement, with his armour, and he left behind the Trojan host, whom the dug, this is from oruso, to dig, the dug trench, Eruke was detained or held them back, so whom the dug trench was holding back, are ekontas, going with whose, against their will, so they didn't want to stay there, but they were held back, whereas Hektor, the horses of Hektor, are taking him away. And many swift horses, erosamates, this is an adjective agreeing with the hippoi. It means, it's from eruo, to draw, and then hama, chariot, so which the swift horses, many swift horses, drawing the chariots in the trench, they left behind Lipon from Lapo, they left behind, the Axanta goes with Hamata, the chariots of their lords, of their masters, the chariots broken or smashed at, now the proto-rumo, this is a pole, although it's first, it is really at the end of the pole. So the chariots are connected to the horses by a wooden pole, by wooden poles, and in fact there are two of them, because we're getting this is actually a dual here. It's axon. Well, it could be an alpha here. I think scholars think that these are in fact duals here. It's hard to tell. So there are two poles, two of these. I don't know what the technical name is, but they connect the horses back to the chariot. So there are no reins on the horses as such, holding it back to the chariot, but there are these poles that connect them, and they've been smashed. And so the chariot gets left behind and the horses take off, I think is meant to be the image here. So many swift horses, drawing chariots in the trench, they left behind the chariots of their masters, smashed. I can't see this is dual here. This must be alpha, and this must be an alpha here. They left behind the chariots of their masters broken at the end of the pole. But Patroklos, Hektor, was following after them, Keleuon, giving orders to the Danans. Sphedanon, funny word, it means vehemently or eagerly. It's fairly rare. It's connected with Svodros. So Patroklos was following on, giving orders to the Danans, vehemently or eagerly, thinking evil things to the Trojans. But they filled up all the roads with their cry and their flight, their rout. When Tamargon. Now we had a compound of that earlier. It's connected with temno, it's meant to be broken. So we've got to understand their ranks. So literally when they were broken, it's N for Asan. So when understand their ranks were broken. Hopsi a la, hopsi adverbial here, high up, and a la is a blast of wind. Skidnath was scattered underneath the clouds, literally. The horses, the single-hoofed horses, tanu on top. Well, tanuo is to stretch, so this is something like we're straining, almost straining, understand, to go back, poti astu, to the city, away from the ships and the Clissia. Literally tents, but generally understood to mean something like huts here in Homer. So we can see this very complicated picture he's trying to draw here. Hector is taken off with his chariot, and the Trojans are going in rout. As they've crossed through the trench, which is meant to be very deep and wide, the chariots are breaking at the pole, and then the horses are going off, leaving the chariots and their masters behind. And he's comparing this here with a blast of wind being scattered beneath the clouds, and in that way the horses strained, strained to go back to the city, away from the ships and the huts. But Patroklos saw the host, saw all the people, orinominon, something like being roused, but I think translate this as driven in flight, I think is better for this. At the place where, that's the hay, placed on, there were most of them. So Patroklos saw the place where most of the host were driven in flight, and te de ech, this te goes with the hay, at that place he held it. In other words, he held his ground, homokleses, yelling out. Hupo ax osin photes eniton praenos, and the men were falling from their chariots. These are the chariot wheels, axosi. So beneath the chariot wheels, men were falling face down from their okion, literally from their seats, so from the chariots, from the chariot seats. And another word for seat, hence chariot, and the chariots, anakumbaliasdon, very rare, in fact it's the word only occurs here, it means fell rattling over. So let's do that bit again. So beneath the chariot wheels, cannot combinate with our word axis and so on. Beneath the chariot wheels, axle was the word I wanted. Beneath the chariot wheels, the men were falling face down from their chariots, and the chariots were fell rattling over. Anticrew, Daratufnon, and the swift horses, Hupathoron, the thoron here from Throsko, to leap over. Anticrew Taphron, something like straight over the trench. So the swift horses were leaping straight over the trench. Ambratoi, these are these are immortal horses. They're not human. They're not they're not. These are divine horses. So the divine horses were leaping straight over the trench, which the gods gave to the son of Peleus. Sorry, to Peleus, I should say. And these were Agla Ardora. These were amazing shining gifts. And Proso Hiemenoi. They were pressing forward. This is a present participle here from Hiemi. So pressing forward, and his heart urged him on, the Epikelamai, against Hektor. So his heart urged him on against Hektor. So Patroklos, of course, has these divine horses that belong to Achilles, and they were given to Achilles' father Peleus. Remember earlier we saw that the horses of Hektor were taking him out of the battle, and now Patroklos is pursuing him. So he desired to kill him, literally to strike him. This is that hiatef and hiemi. It's the huiemi, to desire. So for he desired to strike him. But the swift horses were carrying him, that is Hektor, away for the Ek. As Pasakelaine Kthone, all the black earth, Bebrithe, funny word, it means weighed down, perhaps oppressed here. It's a perfect here. So when all the black earth is weighed down, is oppressed by a lilaps, by a storm, Hemati operino, on a day in late summer. This is the operino. You can see the commentaries will explain the various divisions of the year, how the year is divided up. This one is late summer. There's an early summer and a late summer. So on a late summer's day, when Zeus, Kee, pours forth labrotaton, pours forth water most violently. You could take it with the hudor, which is neuter, most violent water, but it's nicer to take this as an adverb, I think. When Zeus pours down water violently, and when, having become angry, he is angry. So having been infuriated, he becomes angry with men. A very strange couple of lines here, which, in fact, this whole section may be some kind of interpolation here, because the thought here and the language here is very un-Homeric, but you will see similar phrases in Hesiod, in the Works and Days. Again, the commentaries will tell you more about this. So, he's angry with men who, in ein agore, in the assembly, krinosa, literally they judge, crooked themistes laws. In other words, they give crooked legal decisions, and then the beer by force. And this is from Elauno, and they drive out justice. So allego is to care for, so not caring for the opin. This is the vengeance of the gods. Opis in Homer is always used in Homer of divine vengeance. There's other sorts of vengeance of humans, but this is divine vengeance. So just to do this bit quickly here. So as when all the black land is oppressed under a storm, on a day in late summer, when Zeus sends forth water most violently, when he, that is Zeus, being angered, shows his anger to men who, in the assembly, something like give crooked legal decisions, themistas, ba by force, and they drive out justice, not caring for the vengeance of the gods. So all the rivers flowing fill up tone with, must be with this water, I suppose. It's looking back to the earlier bit. So from this storm, all of the rivers are filled up, flowing, and apotomago, it's that verb again, they cut off, sorry, and the charadra is the subject. The torrents of water cut off at that time all the clitus. This is accusative plural here, meaning cultivated slopes. Hala, and flowing into the dark sea greatly, flowing into the dark sea, they groan greatly, adverbial there, I think. Epicars, funny, it's fairly obscure. I think they generally translated as headlong. The car, perhaps some kara here. The head, fairly obscure. So headlong from the mountains, and the works of men, minthue, literally are diminished. So some translated as are washed away, but the word means to be made small, so are diminished. Thus, finally we get to the end of the imagery here. Thus the Trojan horses running were groaning greatly. And that is the end of this section of Book 16.